Inigo was a young man who'd fallen deeply in love with Jesus Christ. He spent years wandering around Spain, both praying and speaking to people about prayer. And in the process, he developed a program of prayer exercise which became known as the spiritual exercises. Later on, he was known as Ignatius. He founded the religious order, the Society of Jesus, or as we call them today, the Jesuits. And that program of prayer became the foundational prayer form for the Jesuits, which has been deeply influential for the last 500 years, not just in the Jesuits, but amongst many people. The full spiritual exercises take 30 days of silent prayer or 40 weeks, spread over with a few hours a day. And many people I know in our parish have experienced at least some part of these exercises as we've used a program to do the shorter spiritual exercises, giving excerpts from time to time. If you've done any of these, I'd love to hear your thoughts and reflections in the comments below. At the very end of the spiritual exercises, St. Ignatius poses a question to us. He says, what do we owe God? What should we give to God? And it's really the question which is invoked by Jesus in the gospel we hear today. In today's gospel, we hear the Pharisees try to bait Jesus with a trick question. Master, should we be paying taxes to Rome or not? Now, this wasn't really an economic question. It was more a political question. Because to say, yes, we should pay taxes meant that Jesus was siding with the Roman Empire, the Roman occupiers. To say no meant he was being faithful and loyal to his Jewish colleagues, but would of course brought down the wrath of Rome. It was a no-win question, and that's why they baited Jesus with it. So Jesus' answer is really quite masterful as he takes a Jewish coin, points to the emperor's head on the coin and says, if this coin belongs to Caesar, give it back to him, but give to God what is God's. Which raises that question for us, a much deeper question than should we pay tax or not, the question of what do we owe to God? What should we give him? And perhaps you've already guessed what the answer is, but let me take you through the process Ignatius gives us in the very last of the spiritual exercises, a prayer called the prayer or the contemplation to attain divine love. And in this prayer, he invites us to consider all the blessings God has given us. He says first to consider creation, that we have been created. And he takes us through to contemplate creation in a quite specific manner. He says, firstly, think of your existence, which you share with rocks and dirt and planets. Give thanks that you exist. Then he says, consider your life, your aliveness that you share with plants and trees. Give thanks for that. Then he says, give thanks for sensation and movement that we share with all animals. Then he goes on to say, but then give thanks for the gift of intellect, of sentience, that we have the capacity to reason, to discern. But he said even more than that. He doesn't use the word, but beyond being just smart animals, as some people might say we are today, he says, consider that you have a soul in which God desires to place himself. God, the God of the universe, the God, the creator of all, desires to dwell within you. Then he says, consider all the personal blessings that God has given you, the things about your life, your personality, your life story, your capacities. And then consider the gift of redemption itself, what God has done by sending Jesus to earth, what Jesus himself has done by offering his life as a sacrifice on the cross, and what God has done by raising Jesus up and sharing his divine risen life with us. Ignatius says, consider all of these things and then ask, what ought we give to God? What should we give to God? So Ignatius then offers a beautiful prayer in response. And the prayer is known as the Suicipate Prayer, meaning Lord, I offer, or Lord, I surrender to you. And the prayer goes like this. He says, take, Lord, and receive all my liberty, my memory, my understanding, and my entire will. All that I have, all that I possess, you gave it to me, I return it to you. All is yours. Dispose of it or use it entirely according to your will. Give me only your love and the grace to love you, for that is enough for me. They are indeed beautiful, powerful words. I'm going to put them in the description below and invite you to listen or to pray it again yourself. And if you can make the time, do that exercise of reflection, considering all that God has done, all that's given you, And then let your heart freely contemplate that. And if you feel ready to make that act of complete self-giving to Jesus, to God, that the Suicipate Prayer gives, then pray that prayer. If you're not ready to pray it yet, that's okay. Don't pray anything you're not ready to pray authentically and deeply. But when the time is right, as indeed it is at the end of having done the masterful process of the 30 days or 40 weeks of the spiritual exercises, it's definitely time to pray it. And at some time, I hope each of us will get to that point where we can deeply say to the Lord, Lord, I offer you everything I have and I am. I offer it all to you and freely ask you to receive it. God bless you as you pray this week.